Hello, everyone, and welcome to English Pod. My name is Marco.
My name is Catherine, and today we're going to continue in our series about job interviews.
That's right. And on this occasion, we're taking a look at part 5 of our interview series where we explain why we left our previous job.
Okay, and so in an interview, this is a very popular question. Why did you leave your last job? Learn some tools for answering this question in today's dialogue. We're going to take a listen to it first, and we'll be back in a moment.
Okay, now I'd like to find out more about your last job. I see you spent almost 4 years at the London Weekly. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. To be honest, the first year was quite tough for me. I was really just treated more like an intern. I didn't have many responsibilities, and I found it quite frustrating.
So, what changed?
Well, slowly but surely I proved myself, and the new editor liked me, so he promoted me to features writer.
Wow, a real step up.
Yes, I was responsible for restaurant and food reviews mostly. I spent 3 years in that position. But to be honest, it wasn't an area of journalism I wanted to stay in long term.
I see. So why did you decide to leave finally?
I just felt that the paper couldn't offer me any new opportunities. I really needed a more challenging role, to be honest.
All right, we're back, and as we saw, Rebecca handled it quite well, explaining why you left your last job, because obviously you don't want to say something like, oh, I just really didn't like my company, or, the boss was a really bad guy.
Or I was fired for being lazy.
Exactly. So why don't we take a look at a couple of different words on language takeaway.
Language takeaway.
Okay, so we've got some great descriptive words here. These are some adjectives. The first one is tough. So Rebecca said, to be honest, the first year was quite tough for me.
All right, so she's describing that her first year at that company where she was working, it was tough, and that means hard, difficult.
That's right. So you could say, this is a really tough situation. That means it's a difficult situation. It's hard because there's no easy answer.
Exactly. So if you describe something as tough, it means that it's very difficult. Now, there is another meaning to this where it can be that you are a strong person.
Right. So that's different because we're talking about a person, not a situation. But if you're talking about a job or an experience or even homework, like this homework is really tough, it means that it's very hard.
Exactly. Well, apart from her job being a little bit tough, she said that it was also a little bit frustrating.
Okay, so usually these things go together. If something is tough, like it's difficult, it's usually frustrating too. And so in this case, something is frustrating when it makes you unhappy or, for example, it makes you feel stressed. So something that's frustrating is not a good thing.
Exactly. So as you gave the example with the homework assignment, if you have maybe a math assignment that's very difficult and you can't solve it, you don't find the solution, then you get frustrated. You get maybe angry at yourself, or you get very angry for not being able to solve it. So that's when it's something is frustrating.
I hate being frustrated.
Exactly. Well, it's not a nice feeling, but she said that, well, it was frustrating, it was tough, but, after a while, I proved myself.
Okay, so that means that she was able to show someone that she can handle difficult things, difficult work, difficult situations. And so she said, I proved myself and the new editor liked me. So basically, she did a really good job.
Exactly. So if you prove yourself, you're showing someone that you have great ability or capabilities of solving a problem or being able to handle a difficult job.
That's right. For example, I could say, last year, Bob didn't do very well at school, but this year he really proved himself. He studied hard and he got really good grades.
Exactly. And well, Rebecca, what she got in exchange for proving herself, she got promoted.
This is great. So promotions are good things. The verb here is to promote or to be promoted. So in this case, she was promoted. You could say last year I was promoted, or he will be promoted next week. He doesn't know yet.
Exactly. Now, remember that to be promoted means to get a better position in your job. Now, as we mentioned, the verb is to promote. And you may be asking yourself why we are using the verb to be in the past, was promoted. And this is because it's an ed adjective. It's an adjective that ends in ed. So you may think it's a verb, but it's not. It's actually an adjective.
The verb here is to be.
Exactly. So I was promoted. Was is obviously our verb here, the verb to be, but promoted is an adjective that ends in ed.
Okay, and so if I'm the boss, the action I do, the verb I do, is I promote someone. So this can be a little bit tricky, but we recommend that you check out the website for more details because we have lots of examples of how to use this.
Exactly. Well, she got promoted and, she was really happy for a while, but then she said, you know what? I really needed a more challenging role, a more challenging job.
Okay, challenging is a great adjective. It means something is difficult, or it gives you a challenge. So that means it's not easy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So she found that her job was a little bit too easy, so she wanted something a little bit more challenging.
Okay, and so this is a really great word for job interviews in particular, because you're basically saying, I want hard work. I want to prove myself. There we go again, prove. I want to show you that I'm a good employee or a hard worker, and so I want a challenge, something that's hard.
Exactly. So something that is hard is a challenge, or you want something challenging. So why don't we review these words that we've taken a look at now? Let's go back to the dialogue and listen to it again.
Okay, now I'd like to find out more about your last job. I see you spent almost 4 years at the London Weekly. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. To be honest, the first year was quite tough for me. I was really just treated more like an intern. I didn't have many responsibilities, and I found it quite frustrating.
So, what changed?
Well, slowly but surely I proved myself, and the new editor liked me, so he promoted me to features writer.
Wow, a real step up.
Yes, I was responsible for restaurant and food reviews mostly. I spent 3 years in that position. But to be honest, it wasn't an area of journalism I wanted to stay in long term.
I see. So why did you decide to leave finally?
I just felt that the paper couldn't offer me any new opportunities. I really needed a more challenging role, to be honest.
All right, we're back. So now let's take a look at a couple of phrases we picked out for you on Fluency Builder.
Fluency Builder.
Okay, this first phrase is unusual because it actually happens at the end of sentences. This is very, very common with people who are making small talk or who are doing interviews. This is the phrase, is that right?
So basically, you saw that in the first line, Mr. Parsons was talking to her and said, well, I see you spent almost 4 years at the London Weekly. Is that right? So he's ending the sentence with this phrase.
So he's making the sentence a question. I see that you did this. Is that right? So he's asking her to confirm the fact that he knows about her. Because maybe they've never really talked before. So this is a good way for him to ask her to give more details.
Exactly.
So for example, Marco, I hear that you're from Ecuador. Is that right?
That's right. So apart from ending the sentence like this, if maybe somebody asks you, is that right? You have to confirm. You have to say, yes, that's right. Or yes.
It's also good to elaborate, to give more details. So,
Right.
yes, I'm from Ecuador. I was born there, but I've lived in the United States. This is a way to give more information because that's basically what the person's asking.
Yeah, I think it wouldn't be very good if you're at a job interview and the person says, is that right? And you say, yes, that's right. And then you don't say anything else.
So, yeah, basically the point is you have to confirm or deny. You have to say, yes, that's right, or no, that's not right. And then you have to give some information about the question.
Exactly. All right. Now, moving on, when Rebecca, again, was talking about her job, she was saying it's tough, and I didn't have many responsibilities, and I found it quite frustrating.
Okay, so this is like lost and found, like I lost my hat and I found it later.
No. This is what's interesting about this verb, find. We are not actually looking for something, or we didn't actually find something we were looking for. This is kind of a realization, right?
That's right. It's like a feeling. So I find this movie boring. That means I think this movie is boring. It's the way that you're thinking about something.
That's right. Or you can say, oh, I found Paris to be quite an expensive city.
Yeah, pretty expensive. So this is your impression. This is the way that you feel about something.
Exactly. So this is another way that you can use this word to find. Now, again, when Rebecca talked about proving herself, she used a very interesting, I would say, phrase, a very popular, well-known phrase, slowly but surely.
Okay, so slowly but surely is the opposite of right away. Right? So something that happens right away is immediate. Like, I got promoted right away. But slowly but surely means after lots of time and even hard work, this good thing happened. Or it's usually a good thing, actually.
Yeah, it's you're basically saying that you didn't do anything very quickly, but you did it very well. So slowly but surely, I finished building my home.
Right, so it didn't happen overnight, but it did happen over time. You can also say this about studying a language. At the beginning, learning English was really hard, but slowly but surely, I became fluent.
Exactly. Okay, so slowly but surely. And the last phrase that we have for you today, you may have seen that Rebecca used this phrase, to be honest, a couple of times before explaining something. So why does she say to be honest?
To be honest is sometimes something we say in English to fill some space or some time. We call it filler. But it's also a way to introduce something that's negative. So, for example, in this dialogue, she's talking about her negative experiences. My job was tough. My experience was bad. So she says, to be honest, it wasn't the best experience, but I learned from it. She's saying this to introduce some things that are maybe not positive, not happy things.
That's right. So it's another way of saying, look, I'm going to tell you the truth. It may not be something positive, but, this is what happened. So to be honest, I didn't really like my last employer or something like that.
Right. Well, you can even talk about this with your friends. So, hey, Marco, did you like that movie, Shutter Island?
To be honest, I didn't really see it.
Oh.
I fell asleep.
Or you could say, to be honest, I didn't love it. I didn't really like it.
Exactly. So it's a very good phrase, but don't overuse it. I think sometimes you get into the habit of using it all the time, and just like.
Yes.
I went to the movies yesterday, and
to be honest,
so try to keep these fillers as you described them to a minimum. So don't really use them too much.
Yes. Say thoughts and ideas, nice action verbs, not too much fillers, because sometimes, especially in an interview, it makes people think that you don't really know much to say.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's listen to the dialogue for the last time, and we'll be back to chat a little bit more.
Let me tell you about a girl named Lena. And no, this is not one of those fairy tale success stories where everything magically works out. This is the kind of story that starts quietly, almost boringly, and then slowly makes an interviewer sit back in their chair and say, wait, you can do that too? When Lena applied for the job, her resume didn't scream genius, it didn't sparkle, it didn't use dramatic verbs like revolutionized or transformed global systems. In fact, at first glance, it looked almost modest. One page, clean layout, no colors, no bold claims, just a list of roles that seemed unrelated at best and confusing at worst. Customer support assistant, part-time graphic designer, weekend event coordinator, online shop manager, freelance content writer. If you were the interviewer, you might have raised an eyebrow already. Too many jobs, you'd think. No focus, maybe even indecisive. And that was exactly what happened. The interviewer, a man named Richard, had been hiring for over 15 years. He believed he could read candidates the way some people read palms. One look at Lena's resume, and he had already formed a neat little box for her in his mind. Hardworking, probably scattered, maybe enthusiastic, but not exactly strategic. Still, company policy required an interview. So Lena walked in. She wasn't late, she wasn't early. She arrived at that precise time that says, I respect your schedule and I respect mine too. She wore something simple, professional, but not stiff. She smiled, but not nervously. And when she sat down, she didn't rush to fill the silence. That right there was the first crack in Richard's assumptions. The interview started normally. Education, background, standard questions. Lena answered calmly, clearly, without trying to impress. No buzzwords, no exaggerated confidence, just facts. Then Richard leaned back slightly, glanced at her resume again, and asked the question he always asked candidates like her. "So," he said, tapping the paper, "you've done a bit of everything. Why so many different jobs?" This was usually the moment when candidates apologized. They explained bad luck, they blamed the economy, they promised that this time they were serious. Lena didn't apologize. Instead, she smiled, not defensively, but thoughtfully, as if she'd been waiting for this question. She said, "I didn't change jobs because I was lost. I changed jobs because I was learning." Richard nodded politely, already preparing his next question. But Lena wasn't finished. She continued, "Each role taught me a different skill. Customer support taught me how to handle pressure and people. Graphic design taught me how to communicate visually. Event coordination taught me planning and crisis management. Managing an online shop taught me sales, analytics, and negotiation. Writing taught me how to explain complex ideas simply." Richard stopped tapping the paper. This wasn't the usual answer. She wasn't listing jobs anymore. She was connecting them. Still, he decided to test her. "That's interesting," he said, "but this role requires focus. We need someone who can handle multiple responsibilities without getting overwhelmed." Lena nodded again. "I agree," she said. "That's why I'm comfortable here." Comfortable. Not confident, not excited. Comfortable. And that single word shifted the tone of the room. Richard leaned forward. "All right," he said. "Let's talk about a real situation." And without realizing it, he was no longer interviewing a scattered candidate. He was challenging a multi-skilled one. And that's where things started to get surprising.
"All right," he said. "Let's imagine a situation. A customer is unhappy. They're confused, frustrated, and threatening to leave a negative review. What do you do?" Lena didn't answer immediately. She leaned back slightly, as if she were already stepping into the situation. "First," she said, "I let them finish speaking. Completely. No interruptions. People calm down faster when they feel heard." Richard nodded. "Standard answer so far." "Then," Lena continued, "I repeat the problem back to them in simpler words, not to show intelligence, but to show understanding. That alone reduces tension." She paused. "If the issue is emotional, I solve the emotion first. If it's technical, I solve the problem. Most agents mix those two steps, and that's why customers stay angry." Richard wrote something down. He hadn't expected that level of clarity. "Okay," he said, looking up. "Now imagine the same customer writes an angry public post about the company." Lena smiled faintly. "That's where my writing and branding experience comes in. You don't defend, you acknowledge, you apologize without blaming, and you move the conversation to private channels, politely and quickly." She tilted her head. "And while that's happening, I'd alert the design or product team because public complaints often reveal visual or usability issues, not just service problems." Richard stopped writing. That answer hadn't just solved customer support, it had connected departments. He switched tactics. "This role also involves organizing internal projects, deadlines, people, unexpected problems." Lena laughed softly, not arrogantly, just honestly. "Event coordination prepared me for that. When you plan events, something always goes wrong. Someone is late, equipment fails, weather changes. You learn to prepare backup plans without panicking." She leaned forward now. "I don't aim for perfect plans, I aim for flexible ones." Richard raised an eyebrow. "Give me an example." "Once," Lena said, "a speaker canceled an hour before an event. Instead of canceling, I rearranged the schedule, turned a Q&A into a panel discussion, and informed attendees with clear signage and announcements. Most people thought it was intentional." She shrugged lightly. "Crisis management is mostly communication." The room went quiet for a moment. Richard realized something uncomfortable. He had stopped interviewing. He was listening. "So, you've done customer support, design, writing, sales, coordination. Which one is your strongest skill?" Lena didn't hesitate. Learning, she said. That's not on the resume. It should be, because every job changes. Tools change, expectations change. The ability to adapt is what stays useful. Richard leaned back, crossed his arms, and studied her. Let me ask you something more practical, he said. We need someone who can switch between tasks quickly. 1 hour you're answering emails, the next you're preparing reports, then meeting with a team. That's how I've been working for years. Multi-job roles don't teach you chaos, they teach you prioritization. She looked directly at him. I don't multitask, I sequence. That word landed heavily. Sequence. Richard glanced at the clock. The interview time was almost over, and yet, for the first time that day, he felt disappointed. He closed the folder slowly. I'll be honest, when I first saw your resume, I wasn't sure you were the right fit. Lena nodded, unfazed. That's reasonable, she said. On paper, I look unpredictable. But in practice? Richard asked. In practice, she said gently, I make systems work together. Richard exhaled. He wasn't surprised anymore. He was impressed. And that feeling made him uneasy, because there was one final test he hadn't planned, but suddenly needed to ask.
Richard looked at Lena for a long second, the kind of pause that usually makes candidates nervous. Lena didn't rush to fill it. She simply waited, hands folded, expression calm. That patience alone said more than another paragraph on a resume ever could. I have one last task for you, Richard finally said. No preparation, no right or wrong answer. Lena nodded once. Okay. Imagine, he said, that we hire you. 1 month later, the company is struggling with communication between teams. Support blames product blames design blames marketing. Productivity is dropping. What do you do? This was not a technical question. It was a leadership one. Lena inhaled slowly. I start by listening, she said. Not in a meeting, one-on-one. Richard watched closely. I ask each team the same 3 questions. What's blocking you? What do you think others misunderstand about your work? What would make your job easier? She raised a finger slightly. Then I map the overlap. Most conflicts don't come from disagreement, they come from assumptions. Richard leaned forward again. After that, Lena said, I create a shared workflow, not a long document, a visual one. Simple steps, clear ownership. Everyone sees how their work affects the next person. She paused. And finally, she added, I pick one small win. Fix it fast. People trust systems after they see results, not promises. The room was completely silent. Richard realized something unsettling. Lena wasn't answering like a junior employee. She was thinking like someone who had already done this, in pieces, across different roles, in different environments. You've never officially managed a team, he said carefully. That's true, but I've managed outcomes, sometimes without authority. That teaches you influence instead of control. Richard smiled. This time it wasn't polite. It was genuine. He closed the folder and pushed it aside. I think, he said slowly, I misunderstood your resume. Lena tilted her head. That happens. He laughed again. You didn't jump between jobs because you lacked direction. You were building something. A toolkit, Lena said. Yes, Richard agreed. A very unexpected one. He stood up and extended his hand. I won't keep you waiting days. We'd like to offer you the position. Lena stood as well. She shook his hand firmly, confidently, not desperately. Thank you. I won't disappoint. I don't think you will, Richard replied. After she left, Richard stayed in the room for a moment longer. He looked at the resume again, the same simple page, the same list of scattered roles, only now he saw it differently, not as confusion, but as strategy. And the lesson was clear. Sometimes the most impressive candidates don't look perfect on paper. They look unfinished, curious, adaptive, quietly dangerous in the best possible way. Because while others master one skill and stop, some people collect many and learn how to connect them.
And those are the ones who truly surprise you.
Okay, now I'd like to find out more about your last job. I see you spent almost 4 years at the London Weekly. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. To be honest, the first year was quite tough for me. I was really just treated more like an intern. I didn't have many responsibilities, and I found it quite frustrating.
So, what changed?
Well, slowly but surely I proved myself, and the new editor liked me, so he promoted me to features writer.
Wow, a real step up.
Yes, I was responsible for restaurant and food reviews mostly. I spent 3 years in that position. But to be honest, it wasn't an area of journalism I wanted to stay in long term.
I see. So why did you decide to leave finally?
I just felt that the paper couldn't offer me any new opportunities. I really needed a more challenging role, to be honest.
All right, so talking about your last employer, this is a pretty ideal thing. Now, do you have any advice that you can give our listeners about describing your last job? Why did you leave your previous employer?
Well, I do have a little bit of basic job advice. I would say don't complain about your last employer. Don't say my boss was mean, my coworkers were lazy, my company was terrible, because usually as a person doing an interview, that makes you think that this person, if they work for you, will complain about you. And so I think it's important, like what Rebecca does in this dialogue, to keep it positive.
Yeah.
Every negative situation can become a positive experience. So the job was tough, but it was a good challenge, right? But she learned how to do many new things.
Exactly.
I think this is important for anybody in any language, but in English especially, to use some of these phrases and to say, I really like a challenge, or I didn't feel this was challenging enough, things like this, as opposed to, my old boss was so mean. He made me work on the weekends.
Yeah.
That company is so terrible. I mean, that kind of stuff no one wants to hear.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's not really useful because even if the company is the competitor, so you don't really get any extra points for giving them like the dirty secrets of what was going on in the company. Maybe saying, oh, my coworkers, they were just so mean to me and stuff like this.
Yeah, no, it makes you seem like a complainer,
Yeah.
and no one wants to hire a complainer.
Exactly. All right, so this is an interesting topic. We would like to hear from you. So come to EnglishPod.com and tell us, why did you leave your previous employer?
Or just let us know about some of your interview experiences or some of your interview questions. We're happy to help you out. We'll hope to see you at the website.
All right, we'll see you there.
Bye.
Bye.